Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're again excited, like always. I'm always excited, like I always say. We are here and we're going to be talking about some of the experiences that we've been having over the period of time that we've been recording. There are lots of things that happen in our lives that some people might think are weird, and some people might be like, sweet, this sounds like my life. But we want to talk about them, and we also kind of want to bring in a little bit of a discussion on like our internal pull toward things that we're called to as far as like other diverse beliefs and different healing modalities that we might be bringing in. And I think that there's a much larger discussion that we can have on that. I don't know how deep we're going to dive into that today because we're going to stick mostly with experiences.
Mhm.
But we do want to talk about the things that we're called to and the things that we are born with feeling, and how those experiences and how those experiences and how those feelings pull us in different directions when it comes to healing and different modalities and our different beliefs. So I know Tammy had an experience that she wants to talk about. So Tammy, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what's been happening for you?
Yeah. So our thought today was have kind of an informal conversation about some pretty cool stuff that happened lately that I felt was very profound and impactful for me. Now, like I was telling Jen before we started recording, hopefully I'll be able to put into words. I don't think it's ever going to feel as impactful to the people around me as it was to me, but hopefully I'll be able to describe or explain why it was such a big deal for me. But basically, so I got a healing work, massage, energy, I don't know, all the things session from Jen, actually, not that long ago. So Jen has been, we've been friends a long time. We talked not that long ago too about one of her callings, purpose, soul purpose is helping people connect with their own unique gifts, especially in the metaphysical realm,
Mhm.
which she's certainly been a catalyst for me in learning more and growing and developing more knowledge, more comfort, more, I don't know, just growth around all that. So the cool thing about this session is normally when Jen and I work together, it's kind of like whatever happens happens. Like neither of us is comes in with expectations of how this is going to work out. It's just whatever needs to happen is going to happen. So more
In
often than not,
whatever time it takes.
yes. So more often than not, she, or maybe all the time, you can clarify, she goes with what her guides are leading her to do for the person. Now I know I've had other conversations before about how sometimes there's ways that you need to kind of work around that, but for me, I'm pretty open. I'm like, whatever works, do all the things that you want to do. And so this last session, I don't know if it's any particular point in history, this was just the right time for me. There was a lot of support from a lot of different guides and ancestors, and just lots of people. So it's super interesting for me. I've had this whole journey. I know I've talked previously about hypnosis and all the different things. Like, I still feel like there's a lot of progress to be made, but one of the big, like, continuing headlines in my life has been learning to embrace this, but also navigating the fear surrounding it, because I've always had this. I know part of it is just the way I grew up, but part of it is just like having this fear of accepting something that once I open the door, I won't be able to handle what's on the other side of it, or something like that. Anyone who may be listening to us and is kind of on this journey too probably has had that experience before too, where
Yeah.
It's exciting but fearful, as most good things are in life. Exciting and
Yes.
fearful at the same time. But I've had sessions with Jenn and done other work around kind of my own identity and what I'm supposed to be doing. And they were all meaningful. They were all what I needed at the time. But this one was like answering a lot of questions for me. So we start the session. First of all, I am just going to preface this. I've always been super connected to my Native American ancestry, which also came with some complicating factors because I don't know exactly. Like I know from, and getting DNA done and stuff like that. Technically, my percentage, right, of Native American. But the complicating factors are that your history doesn't always follow country lines. So there's also a big part of me that's got some Indigenous Canadian bloodlines and stuff too, which we know, I mean, people lived on this continent so long ago. They weren't separated into America and Canada and stuff then, but it makes it a little complicated to try to figure out what your roots are. Also, there's the piece of me that held on to a little bit of fear about some of the stigma around that, right? Because I feel like a lot of times Native American culture, and also certainly understanding like the tribes are all different, right? Like there's different things, but in general, like you kind of get this like this character that you see in media and stuff like that of this stoic Native American man with a feather in his hair, and spouting all this wisdom at you. Now, I do feel like this whole caricature thing has made me a little nervous too, right? Because I think pretty much everyone in this country, in America anyway, seems to try to identify as having some Native American roots. Some do, some don't. But I just never wanted to be that person that was like, oh yeah, totally, I am that, and also misrepresent people who have had way different experiences than me, because I didn't grow up on a reservation and I didn't have those same experiences. I don't have the connection that I wish I had to Native language, to tribe, to culture. I just have the information that I've pieced together myself over the years. But regardless of all those complicated things, I've always had a strong drive and desire and just this deeply rooted need to know more about that felt very personal. I've always felt super connected to the things I've learned about the spirituality over the years. I've always felt just this kind of yearning, if that makes sense.
Yep.
For
I completely understand that. Yeah.
Understanding more and like where I fell into that and what the people before me experienced and the knowledge that they could share. But I was just always deeply connected to that. But then you question yourself, right? You're like, okay, am I just trying to be this thing? And because there's such a big thing about all of the not always great history that we have had with the Native American people in this country, there's this thing where, some of the tribal members really want to keep what's theirs, and they don't necessarily want just people wandering in and being like, oh, I'm you too. I want all your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's these layers. I know we talked about this before, but there's all these layers. So I think that's kind of kept me, it's kind of held me back a little bit from exploring it more than I have.
Yeah.
But it didn't change the feelings that I had. And again, I do have legitimate heritage, but there's a lot of complicating factors that humans put on all this stuff. And humans are beautiful and messy and complicated, and we make a lot of rules about stuff, and we make a lot of judgments, and we make a lot of we can be really racist. Like there's a lot of things that we can do that are ugly, and wading into that felt weird.
Yep.
We'll just put that way. But this session going, I know that was long-winded, but hopefully people will understand where I'm coming from when I talked about this. But this session answered a lot of questions about that for me. So one of the things that Jenn does, and maybe I'll give you an opportunity to explain this a little more too, is she's really connected to drumming. So sometimes she brings the drums that she's made into her sessions, and if she feels called to play the drums, she will do that. Do you want to explain a little bit about the drumming you do, and kind of why you do it?
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of the things that Tammy said. I'm going to explain. I've grown up with the belief that my grandfather was Sioux. And growing up, I was so excited to be able to connect with that because I truly felt and believed that that is part of my ancestry. And I also feel very, very called to different Native traditions and different indigenous traditions from all over the world. And as I started accepting a lot of the healing modalities that I do in my practice, there were times where spirit would come in, and we've talked about Wind Eagle, who is one of my guides that comes in. He's a Native American shaman. He speaks through me often during sessions, and I felt very, very connected to the energy that he was bringing forward. And part of that was I made a drum, and I started using this drum in my sessions because it is a very deep connection to Mother Earth for me and for a lot of different people. It's the
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat of Mother Earth. It's keeping you grounded in that energy. But the drums that I've made have very specific meaning. The one of the drums that I was using when I was working with Tammy, I picked a deer hide that actually has a bullet wound on it that had healed over because that drum is meant to assist people in their deeper healing. So I hand made these drums. There's a beautiful man in Minnesota that teaches drum making. And so I used to have him come to my office when I had an office in Minnesota. And he taught me how to make these drums. And so I have two drums that I use in healing. And sometimes when I drum, Spirit will also step in and sing or speak blessings. And they're not always in English. Sometimes they are in a very native language. And like Tammy was talking about, there have always been fears around what that looks like to other people. Does it look like I'm culturally appropriating things? Does it look like I'm crazy? Does it look like I'm making things up?
Mm-hmm.
And the healing work that I've had to do, which I've also done with some native shaman here, like in not in the spiritual realm, but in the physical realm, is accepting that when we're called to something spiritually, it is part of our soul's purpose. It's part of our soul's work.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I've had to navigate what that looks like as far as, okay, I'm following my spiritual calling, but then there's going to be these repercussions or this judgment that comes from other people in the human plane.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing my healing work and I'm using these drums and I'm singing or chanting or doing these blessings, there's also that bit of healing energy that's coming through for me and for whoever's on the table, which I don't know that I've talked to Tammy about that before, but the drums are part of the language of healing for me
Mm-hmm.
and part of connecting to Mother Earth and allowing us to give up the things that we need to heal, like drop them and
Mm-hmm.
allow them to be recycled in the earth. So,
That's
long and the
awesome.
short of it,
No,
it's awesome healing.
I agree that drums are really very important, and there's something really, like when you're talking about the connection to Mother Earth, there's something really like deeply grounding, or like you feel it in your soul, especially if you've ever been able to hear some of the like morning songs, chants, drumming, or whatever, like they just like reach right into your soul and
Yeah.
you feel it, like it pulls out all that emotion. And yeah, I've always really been attached to drumming and rhythm, even in my work and the way I just move. I have a tendency to do like a rhythmic type of movement, rhythmic flowy type of movement a lot. So I totally get that there's something really powerful about that. But anyway, going back to the story. So Jenn felt called to bring the drums in. And interestingly enough, I mean, she was already being prepared like prior to the session. And there was really specific things that her guides wanted her to do. So we get settled in or whatever, and she prepares me like, hey, there's a lot of people here today, and there's shaman here, and they've been preparing the space for you. And like it seemed like really kind of a big deal. I'm like, oh, what is this? Like everything was getting like they were there to do a job. And so I was like, all right, let's get this going. So she started out with drumming. And when she started out with the drumming and she did some chanting and song, some channeling, like it was super weird and awesome all at the same time. Because not only did that drum feel like it was literally vibrating like every cell in my body, I literally felt hands of people touching my, like it felt really clear. Like the blankets felt like they're moving and it felt like I had hands on me. And I realize it probably sounds bananas crazy to some people, but if you've ever experienced really deep energy work before, you might have experienced feelings like that where it feels like somebody is somewhere that they're not physically standing, or it feels like other things are happening. But this was just crystal clear, and it felt so. There was a moment where I'm like, where is she right now? And you were up by my head, but I clearly felt hands on me. But I knew that you had told me that there was other people helping, and so when I said this later, you're like, yeah, absolutely. They were like, all right, positions, and they all
Yep.
got ready. So throughout the massage and energy work and all the other stuff that was happening, I was kind of in and out of it, so I don't really remember a lot of what happened then. I mean, it was just a really good, intense, like awesome work. I know that there was other times that you were doing a little like singing and stuff like that too, but channeling throughout the session. So then we were done and we did the wrap up. You sat down and you're like, all right, Wind Eagle's got some stuff he really wants to talk to you about, and there's others too. And I was like, oh, okay. So Wind Eagle stepped in and started out the conversation and started to talk to me about some of these questions, that I had, or kind of what was the purpose of the session. And he talked to me for a little bit, and then when I've never really interacted where I like asked questions back and forth while you were channeling, so I just was listening. But then he also said that he called her sister, and I know I asked what her name was, but you're like, I don't know how to pronounce that name. I don't
Yeah.
remember if she told me, but
Yeah.
I'm just referring to her as sister. But he told me there's, sister wants to step in. So she stepped in, and this was, sorry if I get a little emotional. Every time I talk about this, I get just a little bit emotional. So she stepped in and told me that she had never communicated to me this way before, but she really wanted to talk to me. So it was like every question I had about my purpose in the healing work I do and my connection to the divine, my connection to native roots and stuff like that was all just kind of summed up in that, where she explained to me that you and I, Jen, and her, we had been through many iterations of our humanity, the human pieces of our life, have been part of these healing circles, shamans, medicine women, that we've done this over and over again. And that all of these fears, it was like everything I thought she was answering. I mean, if anyone's ever questioned whether or not this is real, literally, as soon as she would say something, and I didn't say it out of my mouth, but I'd think, oh, well, what about this? She would answer it, right? So she talked about fears and how fear is, a human thing. I can't think of the right word. Fear is a human thing that creates these boundaries and limitations, but she really was trying to reinforce me being able to embrace my power and not shy away from it and not be afraid of it. But it's like every little thing that would pop up, she would have an answer for. And one of the things that was super profound for me is there was a lot of reaffirming for me that, yeah, I absolutely do have a connection to the feelings that I've had towards Native American spiritual teachings forever, because that's been my life for a very long time. And that in my role, when we're all, working together doing this different healing work, that I had a lot of gifts that I don't need to be afraid of. And she gave me my name, which, oh my God. So, by the way, this whole time as Jenn is channeling this, I'm just like sobbing. There's just like tears pouring down my face, because it was like, it felt like getting a hug and being reassured of all of these things that you've questioned. And at the same time, being empowered to embrace those things and understand that you don't have to worry about judgment. Sorry if this is getting hard to hear or understand. Whew. So anyway, she gave me my name, and she explained what my name has meant over the years, which I'll share with you guys, which was Badger Moon. And it was kind of funny. So as she's explaining the importance of each of those pieces of the name, totally made sense to me. So first she was talking about the moon, and she was talking about how the moon has power to control the tides. And in that same sense, how I have the power to control the energy of the people around me. Like,
Not in a
everybody,
weird, controlling way.
well, that's exactly what
Yeah.
came into my head too when she was describing that. And she immediately responded with, she's like, control in the sense that you're thinking of is a human construct, not the type of control that we're talking about, which is a supportive thing. Not a I need to have all the power thing. But basically, like, anyone in the sphere around me, just by even being around me, can have their energy shifted. And I thought about that, and it was like, it, as things have processed more, it makes more and more and more sense. But it totally made sense to me right away, because I've always been like, I joke like I'm, the bartender personality. People tell me all types of stuff, and most
Yes.
people feel very comfortable around me very quickly, and will share all kinds of things with me and not even second guess if it's a safe place to share it, which is wonderful. But also, I've been a catalyst for people who really needed to see something that they weren't seeing, because I have always known, but I've come to understand more recently how potent it is. I've been able to look at people and see who they really are underneath all the fluff. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that I was doing that until I got older, because who I saw was not always who everybody else was seeing.
Yep.
if a person didn't have great intentions, somehow I knew that if a person had great intentions, but they were just a really messed up person, I could see that. I could just see what the person was. But also, my brain would piece together all these things that could shift for them that would make them feel better, that would make them more connected, even really tough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that felt like it made a lot of sense to me. And again, this is not like I'm in a to my own horn type of thing at all.
Toot
It's
away,
like,
Tammy. Toot away.
well, the reality is like, it's really not me being like, look, I'm this super powerful healer. Come follow me. I'm not like starting a cult or anything.
No.
But it made a lot of sense to me because the people who have been very meaningful in my life and clients and everyone else have all told me very similar things. Like sometimes my presence shifts things for them, even if it's not me intentionally trying to do anything. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I will just add, so Tammy is really good at lovingly calling you out on your crap, even if she doesn't say anything out loud. Like energetically, if you are having one of those moments where you know that what you're doing is BS, like she walks into the room and you're like, "Oh crap, I got to straighten up." Like because and it's not like a bad thing. It's like the most loving presence, but you lovingly call people out on their BS.
Well, I'm glad it feels loving.
Yeah.
That just reminds
Well,
me of like I
I
always
think
joke
so.
about my mom voice and how even
Mm-hmm.
like the cat listens to me when he's being super naughty and he's not listening to anyone else, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. And he's like, fine.
Yep.
But there is something to embracing that gift of being able to help people in what feels like a really supportive way, because most of the time if we got out of our own way we would have so many good things on the other side of it. And the interesting thing is this is something that I'm learning for myself now too. It's way easier for me to do this for other people than myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I imagine it's the same as the moon trying to change its own self. It happens that it's
Yep.
easier to change the tides around you than it is to like do this for
Yeah.
yourself, which is why we need each other, right? We need
Yeah.
our community of supportive, healing people who can all lift us up and all help us lovingly embrace some of the things that we need to embrace. And then the badger piece of it kind of made me laugh a little bit because that made a lot of sense as she was describing it too. Because, you think badger, like, wow, who wants to be called a badger? But
Rude.
that's not what I thought at all, because it made sense to me because the basic gist of that was when it's necessary, you can be very fierce. And that all of a sudden made a lot of sense to me too. And it was like she was answering questions for me that I've had for a while now, like, why am I like this? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you wonder, like, why am I like this? Because I think about my dynamic with my family. I think about the things I've learned as growing up. I even think of my husband being like, you're really not like the other people in your family. Not in a bad way. My family's awesome, but like just a different perspective on some of the things or whatever the case may be. But it's kind of funny because my dad calls me the red button sometimes, quote unquote, because what he said is when SHIT is really going down and we need someone to stand up and be like, all right, stop, we can call you in. But he's like, you can't press the button all the time or it loses its power, but we know that you will show up if you need to clear all that out, which I've done many times in the past. But the interesting part of it for me was I remember ever since being little, I've never been afraid of that, and I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't been afraid of that. It's not like I don't feel the feelings of like, oh man, this is going to be hard or anything like that. It's not like I don't feel the nerves of like, oh, I have to tell all these people that this is going to be a hard thing for all of us unless we face it, or whatever the case may be. It's just that doesn't stop me, and it doesn't make me afraid to stop. So fierce in the sense of like, if I need to, I'm not afraid of things that I don't necessarily think should be is the right word, but maybe other people might be afraid of. And
Yeah.
I've always been like that. We were talking a little bit before we started this whole thing. Even when I was little, um, it's like if somebody needed to be protected or there was something that was off, like people have come into my life that there was something clearly off about them and their intentions. And even
Hmm.
from when I was little, I was like not afraid to be like, this is not this is not good. Even if everyone else around me was like, oh, this person is great, blah, 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 or I knew, people had a good connection with them. If something felt off, I wasn't afraid to be like, I don't agree.
Yep. Yeah.
And it didn't make me feel bad. And every single time I felt that way, it ended up being right. And sometimes in extreme ways of people that were maybe abusing other people behind the scenes or something like that. And it wasn't anything visible that I picked up, because in those cases, I didn't even know that that's what was happening. I just knew that I didn't like that person.
Yep.
But sometimes it was like grown men, and I was a little girl. And I was like, no,
Yep.
I don't know what this is, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I questioned more recently, like, why was I never afraid to do that? And why wasn't I afraid? Like, my husband and I have had all kinds of experiences as we've both gone through processes of healing where, like, even as therapist said, what'd she say? At one point, she said I was like the monster hunter, where I didn't fight the monster for him, but I would shine the flashlight on it. Like, there it is, go get it. There it is, go get it. But sometimes that required me to put myself in a position of standing up and saying, I love you, but you're not right. The thing you think is happening is not happening. You're hiding this other thing that's happening behind it, behind this, defensiveness and stuff like that. Um, that didn't feel great, but it also didn't stop me from doing it. Does that make sense? I know
Yeah.
this is a super long explanation. I know people are at this point are just like, okay, this person is just babbling about themselves now. But that I guess the reason it was so profound is these things really made sense. They made sense. And like I said, I was just like sobbing through the whole thing. And every time I had that feeling of like, but what about this or whatever, she just lovingly answered it. And she did explain that she, really wanted me to continue to step into my power and take the things that I'm feeling and remember who I am. Remember what, kind of like we've talked before about soul contracts and Akashic records and all that. Remember my history and all
Yeah.
of the knowledge that I had throughout all of this. I have no idea how old my soul is, but probably it's been around a while considering
Yep.
what's information I've gotten so far. Um, and it was just like not only did it wrap up all of these things in a way that felt really powerful and important for me, it gave me the strength to be like, you know what? There is a good reason that I have this connection. I feel so deeply connected to this history because it is my history too. And
Yeah.
it's not me trying to pretend anything, and it's not me trying to, you know, go join the tribe that my ancestors came from and say, give me some of your casino money. That's not what this is at all. It's about something deeper than that. It's not about what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And that was really a beautiful experience. And then afterwards, I know we talked more, and you explained to me how long she's been with me. And that was really beautiful too. You explained to me the imagery that she was giving you of her being with me even when I was a baby, kind of
Mhm.
like playing with my feet, touching my feet and grounding me, that she has been with me this whole time. She has been supporting me. She's been keeping me safe. She's been comforting me. Even as a little girl, you got a lot of imagery of me young and her
Mhm.
being there with me and helping me. And it was just this really beautiful thing, like meeting, an old friend, but much deeper than that,
Yeah.
and feeling very loved and supported and stronger, because sometimes when you're trying really hard to figure things out, it can be exhausting. Um, and this just must have been the right time for those answers. But even since then, I've had some pretty powerful experiences when I've been working on other people where now I can feel her. I can feel her there with me. I can identify it. And sometimes, even as I'm working, like I can see her hands, like on
Yeah.
my hands or working with me. It's like I love having a community, and it's like having a really important part of my community now that I can identify and be like, I know who that is. And I know
Yeah.
who I am a little better now, too.
Yeah.
So I sincerely hope that wasn't super long winded and people are as interested in that story as I was, but it was just a very profound experience for me.
Yeah. So I just have to call out, like, Tammy's talking about how she was like crying and super emotional while the channeling was happening. And when that specific channeling was happening, I actually went into trance channeling. So I wasn't present.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in the background talking to Wind Eagle. I had no idea what was coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because she did say when she started that she wanted to have the conversation with me, and that
Yeah.
you weren't gonna know what was happening.
Yeah, so so it was funny because like I came back out of the channel and Tammy's like sitting in front of me bawling and I was like, oh gosh, like what just happened? Because sometimes like then people will ask me questions and I'm like, I have no idea because I have no idea what was said. And but it was this beautiful, like I could feel the peace
Hmm,
that you just had a different sense of peace about you.
that's a
And
great
I know
explanation.
it wasn't just because you had a massage. Like it wasn't the same like peaceful massageness. It was like
It's like,
peaceful, like your whole spirit was in a different
yes,
place.
it's like being adopted and then meeting your biological family, and all of a sudden you're like, that's why I am how I am. It
Yeah.
was super profound.
Yeah. Well, and so she's telling me some of the things that were said and I was like, she called you a badger? Like, like
Yes.
it was one of those things where Tammy had to explain to me like what exactly happened because I was like, that doesn't sound like a very nice thing. Like,
It made sense when I explained it, though,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, yes, it did. Yes, it did. But it was very funny to me because then Wind Eagle was in the background, of course, talking to me and talking to me about like our connection and which I don't think I told you this part, but he was talking to me about how we've traveled in many lifetimes, which apparently she spoke to you anyway. And so you are also tied to Wind Eagle because he's part of my
Mm-hmm.
family. And so it was just interesting because you were having this experience, this super profound experience, and I'm completely oblivious back here to lollygagging,
You
doing
were
whatever
having
I'm
your own
doing.
conversation.
Yeah. But it was beautiful to see the preparation that happened in the treatment room before you got on the table because it was the ceremony. It was this beautiful, we're going to clear the energy of the space. We're going to create this environment so that she can fully relax and fully heal and fully accept the information that's going to be coming in. And like as you stepped in the room, it was like this line of people that just came in with you
Mm-hmm.
and these beautiful healers that were just like, we're here to support her. And they really were like, positions, please. Like
It's making me
everybody
cry a
in
little bit again.
position. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like the second that I put my hands on her, everybody else also put their hands on her. And it was this beautiful, like, the energy was flowing from every person um, at the same time. And then as they brought in the drums and channeled, there was singing that happened as well. And they wanted to make sure that they were blessing everybody who was in the space because there were other people in the office that day. And so they were doing this beautiful blessing song. It was really a song. Um, and it was just drumming and singing, and which I love to allow come through me. They allow me to stay present for that so that I can actually experience what's coming through me.
It sounds like it
Sometimes
was
I
a
get,
really good experience for you too.
well, yeah, it was beautiful. But it's funny because sometimes I get a little bit nervous about singing because I don't like to sing in front of people, which is hysterical because they're like, you're going to pull out the drums today and you're going to sing in a language that you don't know really loud while you're drumming. And for those who don't quite know me yet, I am I'm not super coordinated. I can do things with my hands or my feet. I can't do both at the same time. It is the same thing with drumming and singing at the same time. I have a really hard time and I get nervous when I know that Wind Eagle is going to come and sing through me because I'm like, you're asking me to be coordinated right now. You're asking me to drum while my mouth is moving. And he's like, I've done this before. It's fine. And so like there's always this process where he's like, Jenn, take a deep breath. Jenn, calm down. Jenn, calm down. It's fine. Just let me work. And so people don't know this about me when I'm working. There's a lot of back and forth and me being like, no, I can't do that. Yes, you can't. No, you no. Yes, no. So
Kind of like
but
siblings.
yes, kind of like siblings. But yeah, so it's one of those, it's those beautiful moments where I can finally let myself let go of the human expectations that I place on myself and the human fears that I've placed on myself, those limitations,
Mm-hmm.
and allowing spirit to come through, allowing my ancestors to come through and do the healing work that they're there to do with me and that I'm there to facilitate. So like it was a
Awesome.
blessing for me, even though I don't know everything that came out of my mouth that day,
Mm-hmm.
um, or everything that brought tears to your eyes. But I'm grateful that I got to be there for that.
I am. I don't know that it would have been anyone else. First of all, I mean, it clearly everything was so aligned that day, even down to my schedule and the fact that there was nobody else in our space when we did this, even though initially there was going to be, and like everything was definitely supposed to happen the way that it did.
Yep.
And certainly you being the person to do it was very important too. But it's very reassuring. You know, a lot of people question whether or not people are still with them, you know, after
Mm-hmm.
they pass. And it's reassuring knowing that there's always support there if you want it. And if you want to see it, you can. But even if you don't know it, it's still happening, you know.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
when the time is right and if you're ready for it, it'll come forward.
Yeah.
But you're right, peace was such a good way to put that because it was, and ever since I have felt more peaceful and I felt like it cleared up a little bit of haze and of course questions and stuff like that. But there was also an interesting piece which I know we wanted to kind of wrap up with some of this. So one of my really big goals, or what I feel like is a really important thing for me to do when we started this podcast, is to make sure that we are having a diversity of backgrounds, ethnicities, experiences, spirituality. There's a lot of layers to that, which again we can get into deeper at another time. But there, for me, you know, just to put it simply, I didn't want it to be, you know, like a white woman spirituality experience that seems to be where, you know, sometimes in the wellness area, unless you're looking for it or if you're in certain places, it can sometimes feel that way. And it doesn't mean that people shouldn't have the impact and shouldn't be involved. There's just, oh, I lost your video. There
I
you
don't know why
are.
my video went away. That was interesting.
You're back. But I think I just notice it more because my goal is to make sure that a lot of different voices are represented, and also to understand the richness in history, in spirituality, in connection that a lot of different backgrounds bring to the table. And
Yeah.
this isn't me feeling like it doesn't feel like it's a what's the word I'm looking for, like a put upon thing, like I want to look this particular way. It has nothing to do with that. I just know that there's a lot more connection to be had, and there's a lot more voices that need to be heard, and we don't need to be the only ones who are saying these things. We want other people
Yep.
to be able to tell their stories too.
Yeah.
We were even talking about some things that I watched recently, and people that or know of that practice voodoo. There's a lot of very rich history surrounding that form of spirituality, specifically in the Black and West African communities and stuff like that. That sometimes people hear that and it's either like kind of jokey, or it's like,
Hmm.
oh, that's evil, that's scary, that's black magic. That's not really what it is. And that was never really the intention behind all of that. It's not saying that there's not experiences out there of dark things, but that can happen in any form of spirituality.
Yep.
And also, there's something to be said for the balance of what are those experiences doing, in the sense of like, oh, how are people working their way through that and trying to understand how to get back to the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the whole thing is, I really want to reach out to people. I really want to reach out to people of color. I really want to reach out to people who are from other countries. I want to reach out to people who have a diversity of experiences, and I want to learn about the woo things that you do. You might not think that they are woo. Even when you think of, like, there's just a strong connection to, like, black churches. People think of, like, Baptist or black churches in the South, or, things like that. And just the people who are kind of what we talked about before, like catching the Holy Spirit and stuff like that. Even when you think of it in terms of what you'd call, quote unquote, like mainstream religion, there's very significant pieces to how that's connected them to their ancestral roots.
Yep.
And there's, in every country, in every place in the world, there is a history of indigenous people. There's a history of culturally significant medicines and people who worked with medicines, and ceremonies and singing and all of these things that I want to learn more about it, but I also want to make sure that they have an opportunity to talk to other people of different backgrounds, because it's going to
Yep.
resonate with somebody, and that should all be represented. It shouldn't be something that only the people who have, the means to explore all this stuff are able to do. Does that make sense? And I
That
feel
makes
very
perfect
strongly
sense.
about that mission. So I know, Jen, you were saying that maybe we should put that out there for our listeners to
Oh yeah,
support
I
us in
I
this
would
too.
love if there are people who are listening to us, or people who are listening to us who have friends who are in different different healing modalities, or have diverse beliefs, or live somewhere else and they're practicing a different type of spirituality. We would love to talk to them, and we would love to connect with our listeners and connect with their family, their friends, the people that they know,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know everybody. And really, one of the things, it's interesting because we talk about diversity and everybody automatically assumes color or race, or
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about overall, like
Right.
everybody has a diversity of experience. And based on where you live, or where you grew up, or where you work, your experiences are going to be colored by the area that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that does come across as though it is a race thing or a color thing, because certain areas have different populations of
Mm-hmm.
people. And so where I grew up, I mean, we were a predominantly white community who had the same working blue collar beliefs and like very traditional religion and spirituality. So those are a lot of the people that I grew up with. As I got older, I moved to different areas and I met other people who had different beliefs and different opportunities. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like Tammy and I both have had different experiences.
Mhm.
We've grown up in different places. We've met different people, but that doesn't mean that we've met all the people.
Right. Right.
And I want to meet all the people.
I know.
I do. I want to meet everybody and learn from their experiences, just like
Yes.
Tammy was saying,
Me too.
and get to know different belief systems
Hmm.
because I don't believe that everybody needs to believe the same way.
No.
Part of the reason that I am on this planet is to be a bridge between different belief systems and allow people to see that you don't have to be a specific religion or a specific spiritual belief or a specific this or a specific that. Like you can be in community with people and learn from and grow from people of different walks of life and different experiences. And that
Absolutely.
is that is the biggest thing that's on my heart all the time.
Hmm.
And somehow spirit always puts me into situations where I'm that person that everybody's like, that person's the devil. She believes in this weird thing. And so I get put in positions where I get to have these beautiful conversations with people
Hmm.
that give me the opportunity to learn about other people's beliefs. And I would love that opportunity more. And I know Tammy feels the same way. So if you
Right.
know somebody who would love to have conversation with us, who would love to share their spiritual beliefs, their different healing modalities, those things, we would love to have them on the show.
Hmm.
Um, of course, we will have them fill out a form so that we know who's coming on our show.
Right.
Um,
But they can email us. Our information is usually easy to find on all of our descriptions for podcasts and everything,
yep,
social media, website address, all of that. Um, but also, hopefully, at this point, everyone understands that we try to be a very not non-judgmental place. This is we want to learn, and it could probably be scary sometimes to put yourself in a larger platform, but I sincerely feel like as our listenership continues to grow, something is going to resonate with
yep,
everybody, and that's kind of the point, is to share some of this knowledge, because we have just such a massive amount of knowledge that we can share,
yep.
and if it helps all of us even just a little bit, that's pretty meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to end with something interesting that somebody could put on our page or below our in our whatever contact us stuff, whatever that is. My brain just lost it. But I would love for everybody to tell us the one thing that you have felt called to your whole entire life and you um were afraid to talk about. So Tammy talked about like the native spirituality and those pieces that were calling to her, and I was the same way. What is it for you? Like what things have you been called to all your life? And now is
Hmm.
the time for you to start jumping into that and
Hmm.
accepting that that's a piece of who you are.
And just to be clear, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would do any of this, especially go on a podcast and talk about this without being afraid, or all the things
Yeah.
that can you can feel from it, I would not have believed you. It's possible
Yep.
for all of us to accept these pieces of us and the really important reasons that we're here.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
So, with that, I think we are going to close out the podcast for for the day. But I am grateful that everybody's here and listening.
Yeah, me
So, we'll see
too.
you next week.
Thanks for listening to my long story, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thanks everybody for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.
Mm-hmm.